In what is now being called one of the most shocking public confrontations between federal power and elected representation in recent memory, a routine press conference in Los Angeles turned into a full-blown constitutional controversy. The date was June 12, 2025. The location: the federal building in downtown Los Angeles. The Department of Homeland Security, led by Secretary Kristi Noem, had called a press event to announce new immigration enforcement measures. It was expected to be a controlled, rehearsed rollout of the administration's latest policies. But it became anything but. Just minutes into the event, U.S. Senator Alex Padilla of California, a staunch advocate for immigrant rights and longtime critic of the current administration's immigration agenda, stood up and demanded to speak. The room fell silent. Cameras pivoted. Journalists held their breath. Without formal invitation, Padilla identified himself and asked Secretary Noem a pointed question. Are these policies targeting peaceful immigrant communities without due process? His voice was clear, deliberate, and defiant. Security personnel moved swiftly. They approached the senator, urging him to leave the room. Padilla refused. "I am a sitting U.S. senator. I have a constitutional duty to seek accountability. The people of California have a right to know," he asserted. Tension escalated. Noem, from the podium, ordered that the senator be removed for disrupting the event. What happened next stunned the nation. Two plainclothes DHS officers grabbed Senator Padilla by the arms. A short scuffle ensued. Shouts from staffers and reporters filled the room. Phones were raised. A live stream from an independent journalist captured every second. Padilla dropped to one knee, shouting, "You will not silence me." The officers forced him to the ground in the hallway just outside the press room. In front of rolling cameras and stunned witnesses, Senator Padilla was handcuffed and detained on the floor for nearly 7 minutes. The footage went viral within minutes. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #StandWithPadilla and #Silenced by the State trended across platforms. By that evening, major news outlets were running wall-to-wall coverage. In Washington, lawmakers were swift to respond. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called the incident a disgraceful abuse of executive power. Senator Elizabeth Warren described it as a disturbing escalation in the erosion of democratic norms. Senator Bernie Sanders posted on X, formerly Twitter, "When a U.S. senator is handcuffed for asking questions, democracy is under siege." But this wasn't just about one senator. For many, it was about a broader fear that dissent was being criminalized, that questioning federal actions could now bring physical consequences, even for elected officials. Advocacy groups, civil rights lawyers, and immigrant communities rallied in outrage. Protests formed outside DHS offices in several major cities. In Los Angeles, a candlelight vigil for immigrant families turned into a rally for Padilla's courage. Meanwhile, Secretary Noem defended the actions of her security team. In a follow-up statement, she said, "Senator Padilla interrupted a federal press event without clearance. The event was not a hearing, and he posed a security risk." But critics called it a smokescreen, a justification for silencing legitimate oversight. Senator Padilla, released later that afternoon without charges, addressed reporters the next morning on the steps of the Capitol. Flanked by colleagues and supporters, he stood tall. "I will not be intimidated. I was elected to ask hard questions. If they think handcuffs can silence truth, they are gravely mistaken." His words were resolute. The image of a defiant senator, wrists still bruised, became emblematic of a deepening political crisis. Constitutional scholars weighed in. Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe said, "This event sets a dangerous precedent. If elected officials can be forcibly silenced during matters of public interest, we must question how much democracy we truly have left." In the days that followed, calls for an independent investigation into the incident grew louder. The Senate Judiciary Committee convened an emergency session to examine the handling of the situation, and several watchdog organizations demanded full transparency from DHS. The American Civil Liberties Union released a statement calling the detention of Padilla unlawful and chilling. But perhaps the most haunting consequence of this moment is the chilling message it may send to others in power. Speak out, and you may be silenced, even if you sit in the highest chambers of American governance. What happened to Senator Padilla is not just a political event. It is a stress test of the very structures that uphold American democracy. When questioning becomes confrontation, and dialogue is met with detainment, we must ask ourselves, how far are we willing to go in the name of order? And at what cost? One thing is clear: this was more than a disruption. It was a reckoning. And America, once again, finds itself at a crossroads between security and civil liberty, silence and speech, control and accountability. The question now: who decides where that line is drawn?